All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible scientific stories ever told. We're talking about the monumental quest to read our own instruction manual, letter by letter, the complete genetic blueprint for a human being.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. What if we could actually open up the book of life, hidden inside every single one of our cells, and just read it? For basically all of human history, that book was sealed shut. But toward the end of the 20th century, that was all about to change. So, back in 1990, this huge international team of scientists set out on a mission that, frankly, a lot of people thought was completely impossible. They called it the Human Genome Project, or HGB. And the goal? Well, it was simple to say, but unbelievably hard to do. Sequence the entire human genome. And when I say this was a huge undertaking, I'm not kidding. This was a true scientific mega project. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of it all, you just have to look at the numbers.
First up, the time commitment. The project was originally slated to take 15 years, but amazingly, thanks to some huge leaps in technology along the way, they finished it in just 13. Still, that's 13 years of dedicated work from thousands of brilliant minds.
Then there's the size of the thing itself. The scientists had to read and then put in the right order 3 billion chemical letters. You know, the A's, T's, C's, and G's that make up our DNA. 3 billion. That is just a staggering number.
And yeah, the price tag. The initial thinking was it would cost about $3 for every one of those letters, which put the total projected cost at around $9 billion. It was an absolutely massive investment, both financially and intellectually.
So how do you even visualize a number like 3 billion? Well, this is my favorite way to think about it. If you were to print out the entire human genome sequence, you would need 3,300 books, and each one of those books would be 1,000 pages long. That's an entire library just to hold the code for one person. Wow. And this massive job couldn't be done by just one country. It was coordinated by the U.S. Department of Energy and the National Institutes of Health, but it quickly grew into a truly global collaboration. We had major contributions from all these countries you see here. It was proof of what science can do when we all work together. Okay, so after all that time and all that money, what did we actually find in our own instruction manual? Well, let me tell you, it was packed with surprises. Real plot twists that totally upended what scientists thought they knew.
The first huge shocker was the gene count. See, everyone assumed that for a creature as complex as a human, we must have a ton of genes. The estimate was somewhere up around 140,000. But the reality, absolutely stunning. We have only about 20 to 25,000 genes. That's barely more than a tiny roundworm. It turns out human complexity isn't about having more parts, it's about how we use them.
And the next surprise was what the rest of our DNA is even doing. As you can see here, less than 2% of our genome actually contains the recipes for proteins, the building blocks of our bodies. A huge chunk of it is made of these weird repetitive sequences, and get this, for over half the genes we found, we still have no idea what they do. Let that sink in for a moment. We have read the entire book, but for more than half the sentences, we have absolutely no clue what they mean. The Human Genome Project didn't just give us answers, it basically handed us a giant, beautiful new map filled with mysterious, undiscovered territory. But you know, maybe the most profound discovery of all is this. For all our differences on the outside, on the inside, at the genetic level, any two people on this planet are 99.9% identical. It's just this incredibly powerful and humbling scientific fact written right into our code. So what's going on in that tiny 0.1% that makes us all so different? Well, a lot of it comes down to single-letter changes in our DNA code, which are called SNPs or SNPs. But variation also comes from those repetitive parts we talked about. You know, these areas where a short genetic phrase just repeats itself over and over, kind of like a stutter in the code. How many times that phrase repeats can be different from person to person. This is called a variable number tandem repeat, or VNTR, and that's a huge part of what makes each of our DNA fingerprints unique. So, now that we have this incredibly detailed blueprint of ourselves, what are we doing with it? How is this knowledge actually changing the world we live in? Honestly, the impact has been nothing short of revolutionary. The HTTP data, which was made totally public, has been like rocket fuel for biological research. It's given us brand new ways to diagnose, treat, and even prevent thousands of diseases. And it's even opened up amazing new fields, like using DNA to trace ancient human migrations across the globe.
And that's really the most important thing to remember. The Human Genome Project wasn't the end of the story. It wasn't the finish line. It was the starting gun. It gave us the foundational text, the ultimate reference guide, that is launching countless new discoveries every single day.
Which leaves us with one last big question. We now have the most intimate, detailed knowledge about ourselves that has ever existed. We've read the book of life. So the question for all of us now and in the future is this: what